Hey everybody, I'm Tim Mooney, author and performer of Breakneck Julius Caesar. Breakneck Julius Caesar gives you everything that you need to know to understand Shakespeare's play Julius Caesar in just over 1 hour. It's one of 8 one-man plays that I'm performing in repertory over the course of 8 weeks. But first, 5 really important questions about Julius Caesar. Question number 1. Why don't I understand what's going on? First, it helps to think of it this way. When we don't understand what's going on in Shakespeare, that's a clue about what the average theater goer did understand back then. Shakespeare assumes that his audience knows most of the prehistory of this play. First of all, the Romans hated kings, getting rid of the Tarquin line of Roman kings in 509 BC, thereby creating the Great Roman Republic. Caesar's ascent in 44 BC threatened the possibility of the rise of yet another king, and everybody was freaking out. It took them 7 generations to get rid of Tarquin, and they didn't want to go through all of that again. Caesar had functioned as part of a triumvirate, but the deaths of Crassus and Pompey left one man at the top as a dictator. The plebeians, the underclass, loved Caesar and weren't quite so threatened by the possibility of Caesar becoming king. The senators and the tribunes envisioned any rise in Caesar's power, which was already massive as it was, would lead to a reduction in their own power, turning them into servants or slaves to Caesar. Immediately prior to the start of this play, Caesar, having killed Pompey already, defeats Pompey's son in Spain, leaving 37,000 lying dead in its wake. It's important to keep in mind the tension and the resentment that surround the conclusion of any civil war. Imagine if Lincoln threw a big party to celebrate the end of our Civil War. Tacky? Yes. Question 2. Why is it that I keep feeling like this play is jumping around a lot? Answer, it does. Shakespeare makes leaps through time and space and never actually informs us that that's what he's doing. Act 1, Scenes 1 and 2 happen February 15th, 44 BC. Act 1, Scene 3 jumps on ahead to March 14th, 44 BC. In between, a month has passed. Brutus has slowly worked his way over to Cassius' side. Caesar has gone from being dictator for 10 years to dictator in perpetuity, essentially for life, and is now calling the Senate into session. And the senators have had a month to gossip about what's been going down. Shakespeare mentions the Feast of the Lupercal, which is February 15th, and the Ides of March, which is March 15th. The next big jump? Act 3, Scenes 1, 2, and 3 are March 15th-ish, 44 BC. Caesar is assassinated, Rome revolts. Acts 4 and 5, 42 BC. Well over 2 years have passed. In the interim, the dead Caesar has been named a deity by the Roman Senate. Yes, that's a weird thing for the Senate to get involved with. The play skips over Brutus and Cassius' escape from Rome, a lot of infighting in between Antony and Octavius. Wherever we thought the play was going from Acts 1, 2, and 3, it doesn't end up going there, which suggests to me that the audience knew that it was going there the whole time. Also, Shakespeare's audience must have had some sense of the map of Rome, Syria, Greece, Macedonia. Shakespeare didn't need to provide one. Here's one just to help you out a little bit. Question 3. Why does Shakespeare call Brutus the noblest Roman of them all? Most of you, when you were reading the play, probably came to that point and said, he sure didn't seem that way to me all this time. It's important to realize that Shakespeare doesn't put Shakespeare's own thoughts into his characters' mouths. Some characters are stupider than others. Some have hidden agendas. Here's the problem with Brutus. If we know anything about Brutus, we probably know that he assassinated Caesar. Caesar died saying, "Et tu, Brute," and that Antony calls him the noblest Roman of them all. Here's the pro-Brutus argument. A couple of instances suggest that he's resisting the notion of the assassination. He struggles with his conscience late at night. He spares Mark Antony's life, not wanting to be a butcher. He allows Antony to give the funeral speech. He complains of Cassius' troop pillaging the peasants, and he scorns the possibility of committing suicide. But what does Brutus actually do? He succumbs to Cassius' flattery. He kills the man who had previously spared his life. Brutus had been on Pompey's side during the Civil War, and Brutus pays him back by stabbing Caesar in the privities, as suggested by Plutarch. In Act 2, Brutus says, "The abuse of greatness is when it disjoins remorse from power." And then in Act 3, Brutus assassinates Caesar, a clear exertion of power. So here's our moment. What does Brutus do then? What remorse does Brutus display? Well, Brutus does actually say, "Stoop, Romans, stoop." Maybe he's going to lead them in prayer over Caesar's dead body. That would look like remorse. Then he says, "And let us bathe our hands in Caesar's blood," making them look exactly like butchers. The one thing he said he didn't want to do. Does that sound like remorse to you? A couple of more examples, just for fun. Brutus aspires to stoicism. Stoics supposedly face pain and hardship with grim resolve and determination. And yet, Act 4, Scene 2, everyone seems to overlook this. I think it's a case of cognitive dissonance. Brutus is weeping, essentially crying into his beer as he tells Cassius about the death of his wife Portia. But moments thereafter, Brutus pretends to receive the news of his wife's death for a second time with patience and endurance, leading the fellow who brought the news, Messala, to exclaim, "Even so, great men, great losses should endure." Brutus is a poseur. Act 5, Scene 1, Brutus, probably still posing, scorns any discussion of suicide as being cowardly and vile. Later, as the war is going badly, he begs his dear friends to please kill him somehow. They refuse. Finally, he finds his lowly servant and asks him to please hold the hilt of his sword while he runs upon it. Finally, end of Act 5, Antony calls Brutus the noblest Roman of them all. Moments before, however, Octavius has just adopted Brutus' soldiers into their service. This was probably a wise move politically by Octavius, putting an end to the civil war, but Antony now has to eulogize the now dead Brutus in front of his former soldiers, who are probably standing there holding swords at the same time. And if Antony is capable of anything, it's delivering an ironic eulogy. Question 4. What is my favorite theme in the play? Missed messages. Messages that are missed by not actually being read, being misread, misdelivered, being forged, or messages missed by wanting to keep up the pose. There are two quick scenes in Act 2, Scenes 3 and 4, where Portia is trying to get news of what's up with Brutus, and another where Artemidorus has a letter for Caesar revealing the conspiracy. Brutus doesn't message Portia back. Left out of the loop, she eventually, well, it goes kind of bad for her. And then I started noticing that this theme is everywhere. Beware the Ides of March. Caesar twice scoffs at the soothsayer who is giving him the best advice that anyone might give him. Casca is flattering Brutus. He continues to flatter him by supposedly throwing notes into Brutus's yard that have been written by the people of Rome. Brutus chooses to believe these messages. Caesar refuses to read the message from Artemidorus, which would have revealed the conspiracy, insisting instead, "What touches us ourself shall be last served," choosing that one fatal moment to pretend that his own well-being is not a priority. Antony delivers the greatest mixed message probably of all time, repeatedly insisting that the conspirators are honorable men over and over again, but in such a transparent way that the crowd will only see their evil motives. Antony reads Caesar's will to the crowd, inflaming them further. But given that Antony's the only one who actually reads from the piece of paper, it's quite possible that he's just made it all up. Brutus is visited by Caesar's ghost, failing to recognize the significance of a visit from someone that you killed, pressing forward to the Battle of Philippi anyway. Brutus sends Messala to carry news of their victory to Cassius. Cassius sends Titinius to check out the approaching soldiers and missees and mishears their celebration as being an assault on his best friend Titinius, and so proceeds to kill himself. Titinius, returning, finding his best friend Cassius dead, kills himself too. Titinius, as he kills himself, sums up this entire comedy of errors with the pronouncement, "Alas, thou hast misconstrued everything." Antony delivers Brutus' final eulogy, calling him the noblest Roman of them all, insisting that nature will stand up and say to all the world, "This was a man." Entirely, purposefully vague. Question 5. So who is right in this play? Antony seems to have the inside line on being the hero, given his ability to respond effectively in the moment, winning the crowd over in Act 3, winning the war in Act 5, and yet politically he's forced to align with Octavius and will later go on to be a huge disappointment in Antony and Cleopatra. Brutus poses as someone who knows the moderate, forthright answer in all of his rigorous ethics. But he screws up repeatedly because all of the reasons that he pretends to are not his true motivations. Cassius clearly has bad intentions, explicitly using Brutus as his lever into power. For a play that's named Julius Caesar, Caesar himself remains largely a cipher, barely speaking at all. He's more like a living statue than a human being, speaking of himself in the third person and believing all of the wrong people. Ironically, two secondary characters, the wives of Caesar and Brutus, neither of whom wield any actual power, but only might succeed by influencing their husbands, had the right idea. Calpurnia tried to get Caesar to stay home on the Ides of March, and Portia tried to keep Brutus from hiding secrets from her in the thick of the conspiracy, which would lead to his undoing. So, those are my 5 really important questions about Julius Caesar. I wonder if they overlap with yours. Leave comments and questions below. If you enjoyed this video, please hit it with a like or subscribe to this channel. I'll have lots more to cover in later explorations of Julius Caesar, like those 2 awesome speeches in Act 3. If you want to see how this interpretation of the play is realized in my own fun performance, please tune in to our Facebook page on Sunday, May 10th, or our Zoom performance on Monday, May 11th, or Sunday, Monday, July 5th and 6th, Sunday, Monday, August 30th, 31st, all at 9 p.m. Tickets for Monday night shows are $5 and are available at calendly.com/TimMooneyRep. This show is also available to come to your school or theater group when I get back on the road this fall. We are a not-for-profit educational institution dedicated to inspire, inform, enlighten, educate, and entertain. If you see the value in that, you can make a one-time direct donation at TimMooneyRep.com. Breakneck Julius Caesar is also available as a book. And for more on all of this, please visit us at TimMooneyRep.com. Thanks a lot.